Moscow, the Ministry of Defense. June 1982. The air in the office of Marshal Dmitry Ustinov, the Soviet Minister of Defense, is thick enough to chew. On the wall, a massive map of the Middle East is pinned with red markers. The focus of the room is a small, fertile strip of land in Lebanon known as the Bekaa Valley. To the Soviet High Command, this valley is not just a piece of geography. It is a fortress. It is the greatest concentration of air defense technology ever assembled outside the Warsaw Pact. For 10 years, the Soviet Union has been pouring its most advanced hardware into Syria, constructing an iron umbrella designed to break the back of the Israeli Air Force. General Yevgeny, a senior advisor to the Syrian Air Defense Force, points a laser pointer at the map. His voice is steady, bordering on bored. He explains the layout to the gathered marshals. The valley is bristling with the SA-6 gainful missile systems. The generals nod in approval. They know the SA-6. In the 1973 Yom Kippur War, this missile was the nightmare of the West. It was fast, mobile, and rode a radar frequency the Americans couldn't jam. It had swatted Israeli phantoms out of the sky like flies. In 1973, the SA-6 proved that a cheap missile could destroy an expensive jet. It was the vindication of Soviet doctrine. Mass over precision. Steel over electronics. But the Bekaa Valley is not just defended by the SA-6. The Soviets have upped the ante. They have deployed the massive SA-2 and SA-3 batteries, dug into hardened concrete bunkers. They have layered the valley with hundreds of anti-aircraft guns, ZSU-23-4 Shilkas, creating a kill box that extends from the ground to the stratosphere. If the Zionists try to enter this airspace, General Yevgeny states, lighting a cigarette, they will have to walk across the floor. The air will be too full of lead to fly. The Soviet assessment is mathematical. They have calculated the density of the radar coverage. There are no blind spots. Every inch of the sky is swept by fan song and straight flush radars. Any aircraft rising above the mountains will be painted by 10 different beams instantly. The physics are undeniable. To destroy this network, the Israelis would need to send hundreds of planes in a suicide wave. They would lose 50, maybe 60% of their force. No air force can sustain those losses. The Soviets believe they have checkmated the West. They believe that the era of air superiority is over, replaced by the era of the missile. They see the Israeli Air Force as a relic, a collection of American-made F-4 Phantoms and F-16s that are essentially fragile targets waiting to be locked onto. But what the generals in Moscow do not see, what is not on their map, is a small, buzzing shape launching from a runway in northern Israel. It is not a jet. It does not have a pilot. It is made of fiberglass and wood, powered by a lawnmower engine. It is the IAI Scout, a drone, the toy. The Soviet doctrine is built to fight World War III. It is built to fight B-52 bombers and supersonic attackers. They have no concept of a war fought by remote-controlled model airplanes. They are sitting in their concrete bunkers, surrounded by the most powerful radar systems on Earth, confident that they can see everything. They do not realize that they are about to go blind. The confidence in the Moscow room is a fatal flaw. They are looking at the war through the lens of 1973. They assume the enemy has stood still. They assume the Americans and Israelis have been paralyzed by the trauma of the SA-6. They do not know that for 9 years, Western engineers have been taking apart captured Soviet radars, studying their frequencies, and building a digital key to unlock the Soviet fortress. The meeting ends with a toast to the Syrian allies. Let them come, Marshal Ustinov says, turning away from the map. Let them break their teeth on our shield. In the Bekaa Valley, the Syrian operators sit at their consoles, watching the green sweep of the radar. The sky is quiet. The summer heat ripples off the desert floor. They are safe. They are invincible. They are about to be erased. The Bekaa Valley, June 9, 1982, the tension inside the Syrian command vehicle is palpable. It is a cramped metal box filled with the hum of cooling fans and the crackle of Arabic radio chatter. The Soviet advisors stand behind the Syrian operators, arms crossed, watching the scopes. Suddenly, the alarm blares. A high-pitched, rhythmic screech that signals a target acquisition. Targets, the radar operator shouts, his hand flying to the control wheel. Multiple contacts. Sector 4. Altitude low. The Soviet advisor leans in. On the green glowing screen, bright blips appear. They are popping up over the ridgeline of the Lebanon mountains. They are moving in attack formation. It's a strike package, the advisor concludes. They are attacking the batteries. The discipline of the Syrian crews is absolute. They have trained for this moment. They flip the switches to active. The massive radar dishes outside, the straight flush guidance radars, stop spinning and lock onto the incoming targets. They bathe the Israeli planes in high-frequency radio waves, creating a solid lock. Fire, the command comes. Outside, the desert floor erupts in smoke and fire. The SA-6 missiles roar off their rails, accelerating to Mach 2 in seconds. They trail thick white smoke, corkscrewing into the sky, hunting the heat and the radar reflection of the Israeli jets. The radar operators watch the screens. They see the missiles merge with the targets. Boom! A large flash on the radar. Hit! The operator cheers. Target destroyed. Then another. Hit! Another target down. The bunker erupts in cheers. The Soviet advisors nod sagely. It is working exactly as predicted. The Israeli planes are falling like leaves. The missiles are tracking perfectly. In the first 10 minutes, the Syrians fire dozens of missiles. The sky over the Bekaa Valley is a web of smoke trails. They are depleting their magazines, reloading and firing again. They are slaughtering the enemy. But slowly, a creeping confusion sets in. A Soviet colonel, watching the telemetry, notices something wrong. The radar signatures of the destroyed aircraft, they are small. Too small for an F-4 Phantom. Too slow for an F-16. And where are the pilots? There are no parachutes reported. There are no distress beacons. Furthermore, the planes didn't take evasive action. They flew straight and level. They flew directly into the missile envelopes as if they wanted to be shot down. "Stop firing," the colonel whispers, a cold dread pooling in his stomach. "Hold fire." But the adrenaline is too high. The Syrians are in a frenzy of victory. They have just wiped out a squadron. They launch another volley at a fresh wave of blips appearing on the scope. High above the battlefield at 30,000 feet, an Israeli E-2C Hawkeye command plane circles silently. The mission commander watches the data stream. He is not losing pilots. He is losing toys. The Israelis have deployed the Samson and Delilah drones. These are decoys equipped with Lüneburg lenses, passive radar reflectors that make a tiny fiberglass drone look like a massive fighter jet on a Soviet radar screen. The Israelis are feeding the Soviet defense network a feast of illusions. The Soviet philosophy of mass is being turned against them. The SAM batteries are programmed to engage threats automatically. They cannot distinguish between a $30 million fighter jet and a $5,000 model airplane. The Syrians have just fired their golden BBs, their entire first wave of ready-to-fire missiles, at clouds of fiberglass. Their launch rails are empty. Their reload crews are scrambling in the dust, exposed and slow. And worst of all, by turning on their tracking radars to lock onto the drones, the Syrians have done exactly what the Israelis wanted. They have acted like a man lighting a flare in a dark forest. They have revealed their exact locations. They have broadcast their specific electronic frequencies to the world. The Soviet advisor in the bunker stares at the screen. The blips are gone. The sky is empty. But the radio crackles with a new sound. Not the screech of a target lock, but a low, menacing static. "Do you hear that?" the colonel asks. It is the sound of the trap snapping shut. The real Israeli Air Force hasn't arrived yet. The drones were just the invitation. Now, the guests of honor are coming. And they are bringing a new kind of weapon that the Soviet textbooks say is impossible. The Soviet military doctrine relies on the concept of command and control. The radar sees the enemy, the radio tells the missile where to go. It is a nervous system of wires and waves. If you cut the nerves, the muscle is useless. Off the coast of Beirut, a modified Boeing 707, codenamed Wolf, initiates the next phase of Operation Mole Cricket 19. Inside the aircraft, Israeli electronic warfare officers sit before banks of computers that look like something from a science fiction novel. They have captured the frequencies of every Syrian radar that lit up to kill the drones. Execute jamming, the commander orders. In the Syrian bunkers, the world ends. The radar screens, which moments ago showed clear targets, suddenly turn into a blizzard of white noise. It is electronic snow. The distinct ping of the search radars is replaced by a screaming wall of static. The operators frantically twist their gain knobs, trying to burn through the interference. Nothing. The straight flush radars begin to wobble, searching for a signal they can't find. The Soviet advisors are shouting orders, but they are shouting into a void. Their radio headsets are filled with high-pitched squeals. The communication between the missile batteries and the central command is severed. The iron umbrella has been blinded. Then the hard kill begins. From the ridgeline, low-flying Israeli F-4 Phantoms appear. They are not carrying bombs. They are carrying the AGM-78 Standard Arm and the AGM-45 Shrike. These are anti-radiation missiles. They do not need to see the target. They smell it. The missile seeker heads lock onto the radar beams that the Syrians are frantically trying to use. The Syrian radar dish acts as a beacon, guiding the missile down its own throat. In the bunker, the Soviet colonel realizes the horror of the situation. "Turn off the radars," he screams. "Shut them down. They are riding the beam." It is a terrifying choice. If they keep the radar on, the missile kills them. If they turn the radar off, they are blind and cannot fire back. The Syrian crews hesitate. It goes against all their training to shut down their eyes in the middle of a battle. The hesitation is fatal. The first Standard missile impacts the radar van of an SA-6 battery. The explosion is surgical. It doesn't just blow up the vehicle, it shreds the delicate electronics with thousands of tungsten cubes. The antenna spins away, twisted metal burning in the sand. The second wave of Israeli aircraft, F-16s and A-4 Skyhawks, crests the mountains. They are carrying laser-guided bombs and cluster munitions. They look down at the valley. The dreaded Soviet SAM sites, the most advanced in the world, are sitting silent, their launchers pointing aimlessly at the sky, their radars smoking ruins. It is a massacre. The F-16s dive, dropping Cebu-58 cluster bombs. The bomblets blanket the reload crews who are struggling to put fresh missiles on the rails. The bunkers, designed to withstand heavy artillery, are cracked open by precision-guided munitions dropped through their ventilation shafts. In the command center, the screens are black. The telemetry feeds are dead. One by one, the red lights representing the missile batteries flicker and die. Battery 4 is gone. An operator sobs. Battery 9 is silent. Battery 2 is burning. In 10 minutes, the work of 10 years is dismantled. 19 SAM batteries, the heart of the Soviet air defense export market, are destroyed. The iron umbrella hasn't just been pierced, it has been folded up and thrown away. The Soviet advisors stand amidst the chaos, stunned. They are watching physics fail. They are watching a Western Air Force operate with total impunity in a zone that was supposed to be a death trap. They have not shot down a single manned Israeli jet. Not one. "Scramble the MiGs," the general orders, his voice cracking. It is a desperate last throw of the dice. If the missiles can't stop them, perhaps the Soviet Air Force can. He grabs the phone to the air bases. "Send everything. Send the interceptors." He does not know it, but he is ordering his pilots into a meat grinder. He is sending blind men to a knife fight. The sky is now filled with the roar of afterburners. The Syrian Air Force responds with massive force. MiG-21s and MiG-23s roar off the runways, climbing vertically to intercept the Israeli raiders. These are Soviet-made interceptors, designed for speed and aggression. But the pilots are flying into a trap defined by a clash of philosophies. Soviet aerial doctrine is rigid. The pilot is a pawn. He is guided by a ground control intercept GCI, officer sitting in a bunker miles away. The GCI tells the pilot where to fly, what altitude to hold, and when to shoot. The pilot is essentially a fleshy servo mechanism for the ground radar. But the ground radar is dead. The GCI bunkers are smoking ruins or jammed into static. The Syrian pilots are flying blind. They have no picture of the battle. They are screaming over the radio, asking for vectors, but hearing only the electronic jamming music of the Israelis. Waiting for them are the Israeli F-15 Eagles and F-16 Falcons. The difference in technology is stark, but the difference in information is decisive. The Israeli pilots are supported by the E-2C Hawkeye. The Hawkeye sees everything. It looks down from above, its radar unaffected by the ground clutter that confuses the older Soviet sets on the MiGs. The Israeli pilots know where the Syrians are before the Syrians even take off. They position themselves in the sun. They dive from high altitude, their look-down/shoot-down radars picking out the MiGs against the heat of the desert floor. The Soviet advisors monitor the few surviving radio frequencies. They hear the panic of the Syrian pilots. I can't see them. Where are they? I am being locked. Brake left. Brake left. Then silence. The Israelis are using the new AIM-9L Sidewinder missile, the Lima model. To the Soviet analysts, a heat-seeking missile has to be fired from behind the enemy, into the hot exhaust. You have to win the turn fight to get the kill. But the AIM-9L is an all-aspect missile. It is sensitive enough to lock onto the friction heat on the nose of a jet airframe. The Israeli F-15s don't bother to dogfight. They fly straight at the MiGs, head-on, and fire. The Syrian pilots see the smoke trails coming from the front. It defies their understanding of physics. They don't maneuver because they don't believe a missile can track them from that angle. They are obliterated. It is not a battle. It is target practice. It becomes known in history as the Bekaa Valley turkey shoot. In the span of 2 hours, 82 Syrian MiG aircraft are shot down. The sky rains aluminum and burning jet fuel. The Soviet advisors watch the tally on their clipboards. Israeli losses, 0. Syrian losses, 82 jets. 19 SAM batteries. This is statistically impossible. Even in the most lopsided battles of World War II, the loser inflicted some damage. This is a shutout. It is a demonstration of total technological dominance. Inside the bunker, a Soviet general slowly takes off his headset. He looks at the blank screens. He listens to the silence where the defiant chatter of the Syrian Air Force used to be. He realizes that the report he has to send to Moscow will not just be bad news. It will be a death sentence for the Soviet military worldview. The Americans have not just built better weapons. They have changed the nature of reality on the battlefield. They have digitized war. And the Soviet Union is still fighting with analog tubes and brute force. The Kremlin. June 11, 1982. The report from the Bekaa Valley lands on the desk of Leonid Brezhnev like a stone. But it is the military/industrial chiefs, men like Marshal Ogarkov, who truly understand the horror of the text. The room is silent. The bluster of Chapter 1 is gone. The map of the Middle East, once a source of pride, now looks like a graveyard. The intelligence briefing is brutal in its honesty. It details how the SA-6, the export pride of the USSR, was jammed so effectively it might as well have been a radio antenna. It details how the MiG-23, their frontline export fighter, was swatted from the sky before it could even turn its radar on. A senior analyst speaks, his voice trembling slightly. Comrades, the Israelis did not just defeat the Syrians. They defeated our philosophy. The generals exchange glances. They have spent billions of rubles building a military based on quantity. Thousands of tanks. Thousands of interceptors. Massive belts of SAMs. They believed that even if Western tech was better, the sheer mass of Soviet fire would overwhelm it. The exchange ratio, the analyst continues, was 82-0. Mass is irrelevant. If we cannot see them and they can see us, numbers do not matter. We could have sent 1,000 MiGs. The result would have been 1,000 burning wrecks. This is the Sputnik moment, in reverse. In the 1950s, the Soviets shocked the West with their technology. Now, the West has shocked them. The microchip, the look-down radar, the electronic jamming pod, these were dismissed by Soviet generals as bourgeois gadgets. They viewed them as fragile toys that would break in a real war. Operation Mole Cricket 19 proved that the gadgets were the war. The panic sets in. If the Israelis can do this to the dense air defense of the Bekaa Valley, what can the Americans do to the air defense of East Germany? What can they do to the nuclear missile silos around Moscow? Our entire air defense network, Marshal Ogarkov whispers, realizing the implications, is a Maginot Line in the sky. It is obsolete. The psychological impact is devastating. The Soviet Union begins a desperate, frantic attempt to catch up. They start pouring money they don't have into the development of the S-300 system and the Su-27 flanker, trying to close the gap. But the rot has set in. The confidence of the officer corps is shattered. They look at their tanks, their planes, their missiles, and they no longer see the invincible Red Army. They see targets. The collapse of the Soviet Union is usually attributed to economics or the war in Afghanistan. But in the quiet, classified halls of the Ministry of Defense, the end began on a sunny afternoon in Lebanon. It began when the radar died. It began when the Soviet generals realized that the future had arrived, and they were not in it. The report is filed into the archives, stamped top secret. But the secret is out. The bear has no claws. And across the ocean, in the Pentagon, the Americans are watching the same data, nodding grimly, knowing that the Cold War has just shifted irrevocably in their favor. Thanks for watching.